Hello and welcome. Let's talk some NHL hockey. Let's talk some NHL forecasting, handicapping on a mathematical level, as there are 9 games on the slate for this evening. So, this is a mechanism to increase Bitcoin total by making wagers which I expect to return positive ROI. I didn't play the last 2 days. There was no matchups available to me. There's nothing even guaranteed. I'm going to use covers.com on the matchups, and we'll take a look at these games. And this is a video that's been on there since before the season. This is Toronto Maple Leaf sophomore center Austin Matthews. I think he's the best goal scorer right now in the world. But they're not playing tonight. And we're looking at a game between Vancouver and Boston. Goaltenders are important. So we have the list of all the goalies. Anders Nilsson is taking on Anton Khudobin. Pronounced probably incorrectly. So we'll have to take a look at the goalies. Do they have the same confirmation of goalies? Let me just go back, because what they have on here is I think they do a pretty good job. Oh, nope, they got Markstrom starting. He will not be starting at all. The 95% save percentage for him to start the season is pretty near impressive. So it's all about beating the mathematical odds. They're making a game. It's like school to me, and I'm a teacher, and I'm going to be graded as a teacher based on my results. But they're saying these are the chances of the game. So we see that the best Boston Bruins are around a minus 160-ish, and that's 170 across the board, 155, one for the away team, Vancouver. Vancouver has got a record of 2-3. Now these losses, you know what? As far as money line's concerned, a loss is a loss, a win's a win. Wins are calculated regularly. So 2-3 versus 2-3. This is their second road game for Vancouver. They won the first. There's a small edge for home ice advantage, but in hockey, it's not as big as other sports like pro football, and definitely not like pro basketball. As far as recent matchups, I don't care too much other than regular in season, maybe last year for some rivalry teams. But as far as Vancouver, the 18th is yesterday, so there's obviously rest if we see that. This team came off a win in Ottawa by defeating them 3-0. And Ottawa was a little tired of a team coming off of a road trip, so actually I had a small play on one of my pools to take Vancouver that game. It was like a spot to play against Ottawa. Calgary, they got defeated 5-2. Winnipeg, they got defeated 4-2. They lost in a shootout to Ottawa 3-2. And Edmonton, they defeated to start the year 3-2. And they're going up against a Boston team whom went to Vegas. They lost 3-1. They beat the worst team in the National Hockey League in Arizona 6-2. They lost to another really bad team 6-3. They lost to another really bad team in Colorado 4-0. They beat a pretty good team in Nashville in 4-3. So you really got two bad teams in there. Now, as far as the total is concerned, we can see in here that you had 7 plus 4 is 11, and 9 is 20, 28 plus 4 is 32. Divided that into 5 games, that's about 6. But you know what totals actually are occurring in here? So Vancouver's average score is 2.4 to 2.6, and the average score for Boston is 2.8 to 3.6. So again, two teams on the decline. I could only play the underdog in this spot, but that would not be the case. Now, as far as the total is concerned, Vancouver plays low-scoring games. We see a 3 spot. We see a 7, a 6, a 5, a 5. I would be leaning mostly towards the under, but the price of which is very important. But this entire thing is a pass. Boston is on the decline. Vancouver's just not a good team. They can't go much more on the decline given how bad they are. On Long Island, New York Islanders taking on the New York Rangers. Halak versus, well, we'll see the goalies here. Halak has been confirmed. No word on the Rangers starting goaltender. Islanders coming into the season with a 2-4 record. Rangers have been terrible. They're 1-6. Consensus is to the Rangers. I don't understand why. They are a really bad team. Islanders aren't good, but Rangers are falling apart pretty fast. Islanders lost to the Los Angeles Kings. Now they're coming off a 3-game road trip with a decent amount of time off. It's only 3 games on it, but I usually like to lean to go against East Coast teams coming off West Coast trips. And you play West Coast games, you get 3 unders. Even St. Louis is a West Coast team. Against Columbus and Buffalo. I mean, they beat Buffalo. They're not a good team. San Jose is not a good team. So this Islander team has not been able to get much going at all. Neither of the Rangers, though. As far as the totals are concerned, there's been some unders in place. The New York Rangers, that New York that game against Pittsburgh, they fought really, really hard. Pittsburgh came out to an early 2-0 lead, and the Rangers fought and managed to take the lead 3-2, 4-3, but then they gave it up at the end, then in overtime. So that's a detractor. And then coming off what was already a 3-game losing streak where they outscored 9-4, this is just a really, really bad situation for them. And they've been allowing lots of goals. In Montreal, they shut out 2-0. This team is a major team on decline. And a major team on the uprise is the Toronto Maple Leafs. They lost to them 5-8, 8-5. And against the Colorado Avalanche, they're just a bad team. They lose 4-2. So really, really bad team. They let in a lot of goals. I think a decent-sized proposition, it's if you can get a good price on it, is for the team total of the New York Islanders to go over. As far as the dog is concerned, we're looking at plus 110, plus 115, and that's not really the most attractive of prices. Within such, if you can get a special prop on maybe laying a goal and a half on the New York Islanders, that might be a good idea. Because one thing about hockey is the pulling the goalie. Used to be from every time I remembered watching hockey, which was when I was a kid in the 80s, upwards to about 3 years ago. You pull your goalie with 1 minute left if you're down by a goal. You pull it with maybe 2 minutes left if you're down by 2, and you don't pull it all down by 3. Well, I don't know about 3 nowadays, but teams are pulling their goalie 2 minutes left, 2 minutes and 20 seconds left in the third period, down by 1, 3 minutes and 40 seconds left, 3:30 left, down by 2. It is crazy, and they're going more and more aggressive this year than they were last year. The net result of this means a lot less 1-goal games in regulation, because if there's a 1-goal deficit, it's either probably going to be a 2-goal game or a tie go into overtime at the end, because that's usually how that works. And there's a lot more 3-goal deficits. There's not many 4 or more. The majority of games ends 2 or 3, with 2 being the most common, 3 being the second most common, 1 being the third for regulation sides. So laying a goal and a half, even 2.5, is always in spectrum right now. But the only way I could play this game would be the New York Islanders right now. Let's move on to the next matchup on the card. We got the Nashville Predators taking on the Philadelphia Flyers. Philadelphia coming in as a minus 125, 5.5 point total. Philadelphia has been pretty impressive this year. Their offense has been... they're just taking chances, and that's going to usually cause for a lot of overs. We can see that they're 5-1. And I think the over is probably going to have to be the play here. But let's just take a look more in depth. Nashville 0-3 on the road, 2-0 at home. The goaltenders for this game. Neuvrith is confirmed. He turned their side 40 of 41 shots in the 4-1 victory against the Panthers. So he's got some confidence. Philadelphia, again, very small home favorite. There might be a good minus 1.5 shot for him. And if you want to really have fun, maybe the 2.5s as well. But for the Nashville Predators, they're on rest again with a 4-1 victory against Colorado the last game. They have a tough loss in Chicago 2-1. They beat Dallas, and they also beat Philadelphia. So this is the second and final match of the season between these two teams. And Nashville won the first game at home 6-5, and there's that high-scoring game with 11 goals. So thinking about over the total seems like is probably a good way to go within this game. 4-0 and 4-3 defeats against Pittsburgh and the Boston Bruins. The Philadelphia Flyers, 5-1 victory, 8-2 victory. They lose 6-5, 3-2 victory against Anaheim. Here's a spot coming off the road trip. They did pretty good against Washington, though. But 5 goals, 3 goals, 5 goals, 8 goals, 5 goals. And we see a Nashville team that will start the season off has been tend to allow some goals. But this Philadelphia team is definitely a team worth noting. Their average margin of defeat is 4.33 to 2.67. and Nashville 3 to 2.83. They're getting more shots on net, 34 to 30 as well. So this is a Philadelphia team that's coming out. I don't know who the coach's name is or what he's selling, but it looks like that they're buying whatever he's selling. He's selling something pretty good. So Philadelphia and the over is definitely worth a high consideration on the NHL board. And again, getting the goal and a half, 2.5 goal spread, going for some major positive chalk at like plus 300, plus 250 on some of those exotic lines. This is definitely the type of game I think you'd want to do that with. If you can get a major team total on Philadelphia over, that's another way of playing it. And maybe if you get a major exotic one, like over 4.5 goals at an extreme good price. Here's Tampa Bay taking on Columbus. Columbus minus 140 on the money line. Bobrovsky is playing. I've already checked that out. Probably against Andrei Vasilevsky. Tampa Bay is a really good team, and so is Columbus. So we got two powerhouse teams coming into play on the Eastern Conference. Tampa Bay 5-2 on the season. They're 1-2 on the road. Columbus 5-1 on the season, winning both their home games. Consensus mainly towards Columbus. There's no surprise there. Minus 130ish or so for the home favorite. And we have a Tampa Bay team who lost in a shootout against the New Jersey Devils. And what a surprise the New Jersey Devils have been. This team is, they're a little, 3 games in 4 nights doesn't mean much when you're on an off day. So I think this team is not going to be tired, and it's early in the season. I think it's going to be fine for them. But before then, they've been able to manage to put the puck in the net in many of these games. 4 goals, 4 goals, 5 goals, 2 goals, 3 goals, 4 goals. So they're scoring on a consistent basis game in and game out. So one of the things you're looking for maybe it would be a team total over, maybe the game total over if Columbus can match fire for fire. And Columbus has got a good offense as well. Columbus, as we can see, they've got 5 goals in each of their last 2 games. They've scored 5 goals to start the season against the New York Islanders. They're doing really, really well. And as we can see with the totals in here, the average score for a Tampa Bay game, they're an over team. They're over 7 goals a game. And within Columbus, 5.6. But we can see this goals allowed here, 2.17. So that makes it very tough. Maybe you might want to lay the goal and a half, or on the, or even a single goal for that matter, on the Columbus Blue Jackets. See, when you're with the 1.5 and 1 goal spreads, I'm going to be looking to lay and not take, because of the empty net things. If I'm laying a goal on a team and they're up by 1, then there's a decent chance I can get the win at the very end, and a push was still in play, but. Just the Leafs game just recently, Michael Nylander with a very beautiful empty net goal in last night's game. And there's just so many of them. Especially with these shooters. They are just so precisely accurate. And it's beautiful how the possession of the game is flowing through. We got the New Jersey Devils. What a great story they have been. And the Ottawa Senators, so unloved by the media coming into this season. They had a decent year last year, and I mean, Erik Karlsson was only gone for a short period of time. We'll see how effective he comes coming back from injury. New Jersey's 5-1 on the season, 3-0 on the road. The Ottawa Senators 3-3 on the season, and they're 0-3 on the road. In fact, the road team has won every single Ottawa Senator game so far. And we have the home team as the favorite. Right off the bat, you're looking at New Jersey as a possible play just by looking at this. For the season, the New Jersey Devils, they're coming off a shootout win against a very good Tampa Bay team, 5-4. Then they beat a declining Rangers team, 3-2. They took on Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals, 5-2. They might have beat the best team in the NHL and the best scoring team in the NHL, I think for sure. The Toronto Maple Leafs, 6-3, the only loss the Toronto Maple Leafs have on the year. And then they beat up on a couple defunct teams and an outscore matchup of 10-3. So when you're looking at, they beat a bad team. Okay, did they destroy the team? Well, yeah. Well, then this is a very, very good team, to say the least. And the Ottawa Senators, this is a team which surprised a lot of people on the West Coast. Maybe not so much against Vancouver, but definitely against Calgary and Edmonton. They would score them 12-1. Come back to life with a 3-0 loss to a very bad Vancouver team. They lost to Washington and Detroit. We can see all these games in here, not so much the Pittsburgh playoff game, but the first few games went to overtime. but the overtime odds aren't so good. So I don't really, I haven't made an NHL bet to go to overtime as of yet. But I think the play here would be on the New Jersey Devils and the money. As far as the total is concerned, we got over on. It's definitely the play compared to the under, because the Ottawa Senators are. Oh, I mean, stingy goaltending here, but I think New Jersey's the best play on this particular game. Let's take a look at the next one now. How many do we got left? 3 or 4 or 5? Okay. Talbot versus Forsberg. Actually, I don't think it is Talbot. Might be. It is Forsberg, though. Okay, that's unknown, but Forsberg is in net. I'm going to definitely have to click on his name. Edmonton's 1-4 in the season. Very much a big disappointment. This team has high hopes with third-year forward Connor McDavid on the team. The Chicago Blackhawks, another one of the favorites, got off to a decent start. They've lost a couple recently, 4-3 on the season, 3-1 at home. The public is big on the Chicago Blackhawks. Edmonton losing to Carolina 5-3, losing to Ottawa 6-1, Winnipeg 5-2, losing to Vancouver 3-2. They're definitely letting goals in. So thinking about his Chicago team total go over, but they haven't been scoring at all. This is like one of those stay away from games. The Chicago Blackhawks are also allowing 36 shots on goal, and the Edmonton Oilers are getting 41 shots on net. So if you can find some sort of proposition for over the total on shots on goal, I would definitely recommend that for Edmonton's shots to go over the total. They're getting them through. Maybe a lot of this is variance that they're not scoring. And I'm not going to know as much about these West Coast games because when I go to bed, they're usually starting. So a lot of the games I'll be watching will be more of the East Coast games, anything that's on from like up until like 10, 11 o'clock, and I don't watch hockey after that. Unless I got a really good betting ticket going on. But, yeah, so definitely have to consider. I'm going to pass on that game. You know what? Maybe Edmonton over the total. And oh, man. That's going to be. How's Forsberg going to handle those shots? I said I was going to take a look at them. And let's do that. Yikes, 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 yikes. Last year for the Columbus Blue Jackets, or the 3-year career with the Columbus Blue Jackets, he has saved 240 of his 273 shots for an 87.9% save percentage, 4.02. Over the total, Edmonton team total over. That's basically where we're going on this one, or I'm going. Man, he's not too good. 39 of 43 in his last game, and he's probably going to get bombarded with shots. Don't be surprised if Edmonton scores 4 or 5 goals tonight. I think that's a pretty decent, strong play, actually. Okay. St. Louis versus Colorado. Jonathan Bernier, and I know a little bit about him because he's a former Toronto Maple Leaf, but Colorado is just a terrible team. St. Louis, very much injury riddled. They beat Chicago 5-2, losing in the 2 games in Florida, defeating the 2 teams against New York and starting the season off with wins against Pittsburgh and Dallas. The offenses, other than their 2 games in Florida, has been pretty stout. And I don't see why that would be a problem against the Colorado, I was going to say Rockies. They used to have a hockey team coached by Don Cherry. But Colorado, they're playing better. They beat the Rangers, a down team. They lost to New Jersey, a very good team it looks like. They beat a declining team twice in Boston. And a very injury-riddled Anaheim team 3-1. They're not too great. This is just an odd price, though, to only have to play a minus 114 on the Blues. So I think it's an okay worthy play based on the price. But like, where's Steen? Is Steen back in the lineup? Okay. I thought Steen was injured. Maybe he wasn't. He's back, but I could only play St. Louis here. I mean, that price just doesn't look right. It does not look right at all. Carolina's against Calgary. Mike Smith is starting. And he's up against former Chicago Blackhawk goalie Scott Darling. Carolina comes in the season at a 2-2 record, 1-1 on the road. Calgary 4-2 with a 1-1 home record. Carolina coming off a win against Edmonton 5-3, losing to Winnipeg 2-1, and Columbus the same way. Minnesota. And then I know they've only played 4 games this season. They got a lot of games to go. Their first 2 went into overtime against Minnesota and Columbus. They're playing against a Calgary team who, if you look at the margin of victories for these games, the first game, 3 goals, 2 goals, you can almost lay 2.5 goals on both teams, if you think of it in that sense. Or you'd have to think that Calgary is a little bit better of the play, but the price that doesn't justify it for them. As far as a total is concerned, do we like the over? And do I like the over in this one? I think it's pretty okay, but I don't think it's noteworthy for anything large of a play. It's looking like Edmonton is the play of the day. Or over in the game, really. Over for the game. I mean, man, Edmonton's not too good defensively this year. Yeah, over for that game. That's the play of the day. And that's something good in Dallas and Arizona. Arizona's terrible. They are the worst team in the National Hockey League. Should we lay 6 goals, sarcastically speaking, on the Dallas Stars? They come in the game 3-3, 0-2 on the road. Arizona comes in the game at 0-6, and their only point was at home. And you're only talking about a minus 150-ish or so area for Dallas. Arizona's bad. They are really, really bad. Dallas is coming off a win against Arizona, so it's a home-and-home series. 3-1. They beat Colorado 3-1, so they took down a couple poor teams. Another West Coast game under 4-1. Detroit, a team that's been doing better, but coming back to life, I think, 4-2. I'm waiting for Vegas to come to life, but they actually beat Vegas and St. Louis 4-2. They're all low-scoring games here, so you're looking at the under with Dallas games. But Arizona loses at Dallas 3-1. They lose to Boston 6-2. They lose to Detroit 4-2. They lose to Vegas 5-2. They lose to Vegas again 2-1. And they lose to Anaheim 5-4. So I think the best way of playing this is the Dallas Stars team total over. The game total is at 6, so it's good. You're going to be paying a good price on it. That's going to be one thing towards it. Maybe laying 1.5 if you can do it. I can do it, and I'm probably going to. I'm going to probably lay 2.5 goals in this game as long as I can get a nice juicy price. And that's where we stand for these games. Now, how about the NFL matchup for tonight as a bonus? I haven't really looked at it. I'm generally big on home teams on Thursday night, but Kansas City and Andy Reid, man, you are just sick. And Oakland's on a decline. Derek Carr, that's a serious injuries that he's got. The spread's only 3. Kansas City's for real. And they're coming off a loss against Pittsburgh, too. So, it's just normally home teams on Thursday nights. This game is going to be unwatchable. You're going to see either all black Oakland against all white Kansas City or all white Oakland against all red colored uniform in Kansas City. I do not like the Thursday colors. At least they don't do color versus color anymore. But yes. Anyway, this is a divisional rivalry. Kansas City has taken down the last 5 games. And they've covered all but one of them. And the only one they didn't cover, they failed to by 0.5 point. Kansas City on the season has covered all but their last game on the road. They took out Houston 42-34. I was going to say they took the LA Clippers because that's what I'm used to seeing when I see that. But the LA Chargers, they took down 24-10. And the New England Patriots 42-27. But here we have Oakland. They have lost 4 consecutive games, losing to the Clippers, rather the Chargers, 17-16. The Ravens 30-17. They're getting a hard time getting offense on the board. They have scored 16, 17, 10, and 10. That has just been a not so good performance. Statistically speaking, I like these statistics in here. Kansas City has been rushing the ball for 5.3 yards per play, but Oakland's rush defense has been pretty good. And Oakland, they're 4.3. This is where you want to put the last 3. It's down to 3.9. But Kansas City rush defense, but who did they play in the last 3 games? I mean, Le'Veon Bell would have been the last game, so there's a big reason there. Houston and Washington. Well, Washington's got an okay running game. But the pass defense, we can see within Kansas City. Alex Smith is just looking phenomenal. He is. And Oakland's pass defense, well, not the greatest, but could be worse. The one thing you're probably going to see, this is an alarming thing here, is that Alex Smith is getting sacked over 3 times a game. So if there's any type of prop on that, then maybe we can maybe get in on something like that. As far as the defense of Kansas City, well, that is just a phenomenal defense. As we can see, an 83.5 quarterback rating. Quarterback's only throwing for 247 yards a game. And Oakland's only getting 185 yards a game. Now, the whole thing about unders, which suck, and I actually played Talk 1 about under a few weeks ago in a Green Bay game, is you could get screwed on a turnover, and that can crush your ticket. And it did for me last time. But the total's 47, 46. That's a pretty large number. It's a pretty large number. The Kansas City defense, Houston's a high-scoring team, but they allowed 19 to Pittsburgh, 20 to Washington, 10 to the Clippers, 20 to Philadelphia. The best way to go might be to play the Oakland team total under, but I think the game total under is probably where I'm going to be making a wager on this game. Well then, thank you for tuning in. Have yourself a great day, and good luck.